Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel. How are you doing today, beautiful? My name is Joesephyr, and in today's Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia Should You Pull video, we're going to be talking about a new character that's going to be coming along tomorrow, and probably my favourite character from Final Fantasy II besides the Emperor, in Minwu. And like the Emperor, Minwu likes his off-turn damage, but there's a lot more to him than meets the eye. So if you'd like to learn more about him, the return of Locke and Vanille, and of course the event that comes with them, then stay tuned and keep on watching. Before we get started, of course, don't forget to check out all of my social links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Patreon. Very glad to say that I am not wearing copious amounts of SFX and prosthetics makeup, which is realistically cotton buds and black nail polish this time around, like I did yesterday for yesterday's stream, which was extended and took quite a lot out of me. But, you know, streaming with one eye, quite difficult. All respect to anyone who has to deal with that more regularly than I do. Absolutely. And of course, when it comes to Patreon, I do always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a video. And today that person is going to be Diotic, who has been one of my supporters for a very long time now and is one of my Ultima patrons. And sadly, when I sent out the physical version of their title card, it got lost in the mail. So I've quite happily made a brand new one, and that should be with you fairly shortly. Please do let me know if you haven't received your title card if you are on this tier, because I am more than happy to make you a brand new one and then send it back out again, because I would be devastated to hear that you guys didn't get it. So thank you ever so much for all of you supporters, and if you'd like all of the benefits that come with being a patron, perhaps you'd like to consider clicking on the link in the description box below. And lastly, don't forget to check out all the other content creators out there for Dissidia, because they all deserve your love too. So first things first, of course, let's take a look at the banners that we have on offer and what the details are for the characters featured in them. So this time around, with any new BT character, we have two banners here to talk about. The first of which is going to contain Locke's full kit, as he's going to be returning, as well as Minwu's FR only on this banner, and then Shadow and 9 LDs and their kits, the rest of their kits will be featured here as well. And then secondly, we'll have Minwu's banner itself, which has Minwu's full kit in it, as well as the returns of Cissnei and Vanille. So Cissnei, Shadow, and 9 will be getting their force enhancements here, but we're going to be focusing on Vanille, Locke, and Minwu himself, as they're getting either reworked or are brand new characters entirely. So, first things first, let's take a look at Vanille and Locke. So big shout outs of course to Minwu for their translations over on Reddit here. Vanille's rework actually quite nice, honestly. Like, it's quite simple, as many reworks these days tend to be, but she gets additional HP dumps across the board, and honestly, Dispel, now that it only has 2, is probably the ability that you're going to use the least, based on the fact that she dispels using her EX and her LD now, or at least the trap that comes from her EX. And D-Protect giving you those big defense and attack drops, like some of the biggest in the game, is definitely relevant to Vanille's kit if you want to use an off-turn damage-based team, because if they're hitting less hard and they're taking more damage, then your traps are going to do more damage. So, skill 1 and 2, pretty simple. The LD passive, it makes it so that the ability that she gets from it gets a slightly long duration when you start with it and when you use it with the LD itself. It now dispels everything from enemies, so like I said, Dispel as a skill, probably not going to be as useful unless you need it in an emergency. And Brave gains and all of the effects that come from the LD, so all of the stat gains, etc., will also be increased from this. Her EX, her level 90 is actually what I find the most interesting though. It does more damage, it now has 4 HP dumps in it, and it gives an additional HP dump to the assassination attack, which is the trap that comes off of it. So if you're looking for off-turn damage, Vanille's actually pretty solid. She doesn't take up too many debuff slots, and more importantly, she can free up debuff slots for other characters, like the likes of Minwu. The only issue with Vanille is that while she is a support-based character with decent bravery battery skills, which aren't difficult by this day and age, she's not a healer. So that's something that you will need to bear in mind. If you're not taking a healer in an off-turn damage composition, you're probably going to need to rethink your team composition if you're planning on taking damage. So pair her up with either a strong tank like Gladio, or even the likes of like Auron, Galoof, that kind of thing, or another off-turn damage dealer like Minwu if you want to get the most out of her. But while she's not backbreaking in any way, she gets some pretty nice stuff here. So now let's take a look at Locke. Now Locke gets some upgrades here. Like he is a primary, or his primary function is as a damage dealer, but he does have party-wide benefits. Like he has a little bit of healing with his Phoenix Ray. He has some auras, and of course he has a BT, which has got some fairly nice effects to it, like being able to ignore defense on all attacks of your party and making it so that the party can't be broken. The rework that he gets here, he gets more skill uses across the board and more like HP dumps across them. When he uses his HP plus Miracle Shoes, which is his free turn variant of his HP plus, you now recover a use of Sneak Slash, which, you know, longevity isn't nearly as big a deal as it was a year or 2 years ago, because you tend to just get rid of enemies before any semblance of danger for running out of skills comes about. But it's a nice addition. And then the LD itself now has 5 HP dumps on it, and obviously helps you work towards your Genji Gloves X Master Scroll ability, so that you can then do your 8 HP dumping attack. And you get the special effect that comes from it for a longer period of time. His EX now has 6 HP dumps on it, and also gives it the ability for the Genji Gloves X Master Scroll HP variant to be instant turn and not contribute to turn count. Which is, well, it's really good, because it's an 8 HP dumping attack, and then you can follow it up with something afterwards, maybe to set up the next one, maybe you just want to get a bit of healing in, or if you just want to kind of deal more damage and get a Sneak Slash in, you can do that. But because it's instant turn rate, and because Locke's BT effect doesn't last the longest, it does cut into his BT effect. So that's something to bear in mind. I don't think Locke is bad, by any means. I think that the things that he does are a little outdated, honestly, apart from the 8 HP dump instant turn attack. But even then, when you have the likes of Tifa or Renoa running around, is this a character that I'm going to be spending my BT resources on if I haven't done so already? No, probably not. But if you already have him greened, absolutely there's a reason to pull him back out of the woodwork again. So now let's have a look at Minwu, who is the featured character here. Now, after the likes of Tifa and Renoa's BTs, which are back-breakingly powerful, a lot of people have some reservations about Minwu being a slightly different type of character with a BT to those two. But let me tell you this character is not to be underestimated. You can do so much with this character, it's not even funny. Now, I will point out, and I'm going to leave a link in the description box below for this, I have a really wonderful evaluation that has been given here by Sinewave over on YouTube, on Reddit, for Minwu. As somebody who loves Minwu probably as much as I do, if not more so, they've done like full 25 fight worth of Minwu saga, all of that stuff, and used him in everything, and has an absolutely fantastic breakdown on everything that you can do with Minwu to the letter. And I was very impressed with this evaluation and thought it was fantastic. So I'll definitely leave a link in the description box for that. Thank you, Sinewave, for that. So, much like Sinewave's evaluation here, I'm actually going to talk about his skill 2 before his skill 1, because it does make more sense to do so. So, his Holy 16 ability, because he is from FF2, which means he's going to have crazy numbers attached to the ends of everything. It basically is a split HP damage attack with 3 HP dumps on it that gives him stacks of his skilled White Mage buff, as well as inflicting Holy Anchor onto the enemies. Now, Holy Anchor is the ability that his entire kit revolves around. So, it's Holy Imperil, defense down, and it triggers a trap for Holy 16 every single time that the duration of this ticks down. So it lasts for 6 turns, but you're gonna want to keep this up, because all of his damage revolves around this ability. So Holy 16 doesn't sound like a lot, because it is a single HP dumping attack that heals the party. A lot of his kit heals the party, which is fantastic, obviously. And it also grants him stacks of Skilled White Mage. So what is Skilled White Mage exactly? It's an enchant for Holy on himself. He does enchant the party for Holy later, though. And it gives him generic stats up, and also stacks at 5. And his stats don't change between 1 and 5. But he gets a plus version of his skill 1, which is Teleport 16. So Teleport 16, which has 12 uses, by the way, is a triple HP dumping attack, single target, that deletes the enemy's turn. And also actively decreases the Holy Anchor target on the enemy by 1 action, which means it's going to then trigger the Holy 16 trap afterwards. The plus version of it, however, deals splash damage and deletes all of the enemy's turns, whilst also decreasing the debuff on all enemies, therefore triggering AoE HP damage for each enemy that's on the field. So, by this, you can probably tell that the more enemies there are on the board, the more damage Minwu is going to be doing if you wanted to target them for, like, turn deletion. Because the nice thing with him is that you can either just focus an enemy down, delete all of their turns, and have Minwu himself you take the enemy's sort of duration of Holy Anchor and the traps down, or you can let them take their own turns and do it. So his EX, which is Soul Convergence, which honestly he should only be allowed to use once, but we won't go into that. If you've played FF2, you know what I mean. Gives him another buff which is party-wide buffs and also decreases all targets' Holy Anchor duration by 1 turn. Has 4 HP dumps in it, he gets a free skill use on the following turn, and, you know, just does, it gives you a free skill use at the end of the turn. It's just a nice way of bringing all of the Holy Anchors down. I should also note as well that every time the trap triggers, your skilled White Mage buff will go up by 1. So the more you use the Holy 16 buffs, the more likely you are to get Teleport 16 plus as well. His LD, his LD adds rather a lot to his kit, again. So he gets a special buff called Noble Soul here, which gives you all of the Holy Anchor buffs back up again, and Noble Soul is Enchant Holy for the party, is also going to give more Brave HP, offensive stats pretty much every time you do anything with him, and then he gets stacks of Noble Soul every time he does an attack, which includes the traps that he triggers. And then at maximum stacks, you then get, at 5 this is, you get another trap that goes off, which is 3 HP dumps, puts Holy Anchor back up to 6 turns. It's basically, you're just watching these white magic explosions just pop off everywhere you look, and it's just really, as somebody who loves off-turn damage, it's very entertaining to watch. And he's healing the party the entire time that this is happening as well, by the way. So then, that's without his BT or his FR, and it's already a pretty solid kit. It doesn't seem like much. When you look at that first trap and it's 1 HP up, you're like, I don't know about this as a primary damage dealer. But then you start looking at all of the extra stuff that comes with it, and it adds up quickly. So his FR weapon, partnered up with Kurosame, massive heal to the party. Instant turn rate, which we always love because it allows for FR-BT combos and stuff like that. And when a turn passes with a Holy Attack command selected, or a Holy Attack is triggered outside of your turn, you get plus 5% damage. And when a follow-up attack outside of your turn triggers, you get 5% out of that as well. And you get max HP overflow. This is obviously very much designed to go with your cores, your gladios, your gloofs, Aurans. Anyone that does off-turn damage is designed to go with this effect, particularly if it's non-elemental and can be enchanted for Holy through Minwu. So you've got lots of options for that. He's very much an off-turn damage dealer. Core in particular works well with Minwu's FR because it doesn't have to be during enemy turns. It can trigger during enemy and player turns, so if you want to take a more offensive strategy, you can absolutely do that with Minwu. But bear in mind that Minwu is very much locked into Holy damage. If you don't want to take Holy damage because of elemental lockouts, although Sine Wave has very much proved that you can still push through if you really want to with Minwu through that, then maybe Minwu might not be for you. BT weapon. He has a BT. So this one is just quite simple. You get Brave HP and Brave cap ups. Sadly, no HP cap ups here, which means that you're going to want to get that from other sources. But when Holy Anchor duration decreases by action, it goes down by another 1, which means you're getting 2 attacks for every trap that goes off with him. So you're literally doubling his damage with his BT. You're gonna want this. If you're gonna use Minwu and you want the maximum damage that you can get out of him, you're going to want this weapon. Like, it's practically mandatory. Because with a damage dealer, when you're coming up against the likes of Tifa and Renoa, you've got to be hitting hard to be able to keep up with those guys. And Minwu can absolutely do that. Minwu can absolutely do that, but he does it in a very different way. I'm really looking forward to Minwu, so much so that I'm probably just going to go gems on this banner, because I want Minwu really badly. I like the character, I like the playstyle, he fits he ticks all the boxes for me, really enjoy him. However, do you need him? No, probably not. Like, not if you've got your Tifas and Renoas and you don't like the off-turn style of damage. You know, A lot of people do because it's the kind of thing that makes FR time last way longer, and that's something that's very much a ticked box for him, at least in my opinion, because it means that if you're pairing him with the right characters, you can hit 999% without even batting an eyelid if you're against enemies that like to jump turn count, like to do all of that good stuff. But yeah, there's a lot to love about Minwu, and a lot of people that I've spoken to have kind of written him off, but a lot of people who respect what he does very well. I am in the latter camp. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the event that's going to come along with Minwu's banners, and that's going to be the next act in the story. So we have Act 3, Chapter 10, Part 1. That never gets easier to say. So shout outs of course to DissidiaCompendium.com for their information here. We'll be facing off against 2 white dragons. And honestly, for a story boss, this is actually one of the most simple ones that I've seen in a very long time. It's pretty simplistic. So basically it has elemental lockout for any damage that's not holy. So if non-elemental damage I believe is fine, but if any other elemental damage other than holy is going to be reduced to 0. It's just not going to do anything. And the force gauge will fill pretty quickly so that you can it can use its force attack, which will give itself free turns, like whenever it wants to. And while its force time is up, your bravery is frozen, so you can't gain bravery. So you can still get you can still do damage, but you won't gain bravery. You can, however, reduce the amount of force time they have by deleting their turns. So if you want to use the likes of Minwu, obviously, Zidane is an option here, Ultimisia can do it, a Miditelian can do it, then you can actually actively reduce the force time duration by doing that for each enemy you hit with a turn deletion. So that's something to bear in mind as well. You can only cancel the force time by doing a force ability that doesn't deal bravery or HP damage, which means that it's going to have to be Minwu's or Aerith's. I didn't actually mention that Minwu's FR doesn't deal damage, and I should have done. But it doesn't deal damage, it's a healing attack, that's instant turn rate. But in terms of their actual attacks, they don't really do an awful lot. They give themselves speed and attack up, they have Ice, Brave and HP attacks that when they pull themselves out of being broken. That's kind of it. They will reduce, they'll give themselves free turns, but that's kind of it. The idea of this is that you use Minwu to obviously charge up, make sure that they've got Holy Anchor on them, deal damage with off-turn damage, and that's going to be the primary strategy that most players use here, where you use either Minwu or any other Holy Enchanter or non-elemental damage, and then you go in with off-turn damage dealers, whether those be Core, Machina, Auron, Galoof, Gladio, Minwu himself. I've seen Firion get used. There are tons of ways around this particular fight. Or, if you don't want to bother with all of that, you could just take Rinoa, Selfie and Kane or something along those lines, charge the FR gauge super quickly and blitz them, because while they have 100 million HP each, in this day and age, it's really not that much when you think about what you can do when you push yourself to do maximum damage. So now we have Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to let your voice be heard and tell everyone whether you would or wouldn't pull on a banner and why that might be the case. So as always, a massive shout out to all of my patrons for their votes and their comments. It's obviously not the only aspect to my Patreon, but if you would like to join in on the conversation, then perhaps you'd like to consider joining up with everyone, and then you could have your comments featured on the videos going forwards as well. So let's take a look at these banners. We'll start with Locke's banner. Nobody is pulling on gems with this banner. 15% of people said they were going 100 or more tickets. 8% of people said they were using less than 100 tickets. 23% said no thank you because they're not interested. And 54% said no thank you because they had everything. I don't have Shadow LD, but it's the only thing I don't have here. And even if I didn't have Locke's BT, I probably wouldn't pull on it here. Not because it's bad, it's not. There's just better out there for me. So unless you're a big fan of Locke, I probably wouldn't pull for him now. And if you were a big fan of Locke, you probably pulled for him the last time he came around. Conversely, however, I was under the impression that everyone had vastly underestimated Minwu. However, according to this poll, nobody is not pulling on him at all. 57% of people said they were going to use gems here, of which I definitely come into this category. 100 more tickets saying 33% of people saying 100 or more tickets. I'll get that out in a minute. 10% of people saying less than 100 tickets. So everyone is giving something to Minwu. So that's very interesting. I think that his playstyle is just a little more engaging than the likes of Rinoa. It's not just spam a button and wait. It's you kind of mold Minwu's playstyle to what you're up against, and he is very versatile, which is very, very interesting. So let's go into some of the comments. Koelzorg says, off-turn, defense-based and trap teams are my favourite types of team to run in Dissidia. Minwu plays into that nicely, covering both off-turn damage and traps with flair. He'll pair up well in so many good teams, lockouts notwithstanding, that he's hard to not recommend. He can switch up his tempo nicely too, either using skills to delete turns or relying on his HP plus variants if you want enemies to act, further enhancing his very broad use case. Gems all the way. I actually didn't even mention his HP plus earlier, and I should have done, and I apologise. And I also didn't mention his armour. His armour's not the greatest, like it's not leaning fully into HP damage. So you know, sad that it's not what it could have been for the it's not Kayn or Balthier good, but it would have been nice to have been. But his HP plus you can use if you want to sort of trigger Holy Anchor without deleting turns or relying on using Holy or like Holy 16 and stuff like that. You can actually just use that and make it so that they're taking their own turns, or you can use Teleport to just delete turns and go in with the all offensive. He's just a very versatile unit, and it makes him very desirable, certainly to me, and I'm sure to a lot of others as well. J-Dog says, all in with gems for Minwu. I love turn traps and defensive characters, and Minwu fits the bill perfectly with my playstyle. If you like watching enemies die on their own turns, pop in a tank or off-turn damage and make a sandwich or something, because enemies will basically be dead by the time you come back. Minwu holds up well with future Shinryu too, so if you're investing here, you'll get plenty of bang for your buck. That being said, Renoa is basically the win button moving forward until we get to Jack Garland. While Minwu is also super powerful, he's not a necessary unit by any means. I don't know if I think that I prefer Minwu to Renoa, honestly. As somebody who has invested in both Renoa and Tifa, Minwu is different enough from them both that I would enjoy using him more in certain fights than the other two. But having all three of them, I know it's quite expensive because they're all like heavy BT units. You're covering a lot of bases, and honestly, the fact that he heals off of most of his stuff makes him very, very interesting to me. I love offensive characters with HP regens or healing. Characters like Raijin or Leo or stuff like that. I really like characters like that, and Minwu just takes that to the next level. And then finally, Lewis Yamato says, I'm unsure if I'm pulling on Minwu. He seems like an interesting character and part of me wants his kit, especially after getting lucky on Arden. However, I'm unsure if he's worth spending resources on right now. I have everything from Locke's banner, and I at least hope to get Cisne's LD from Minwu's, but I don't know how good Minwu is or if he's worth it right now. I can tell you that if you were to invest in him, you wouldn't regret it. Like, he's definitely very strong. The other thing I will point out as well is that elemental lockout content doesn't last forever. We've got another couple of months of it from here on out, but after that point, Minwu, Faris, I want to put those two together. Like, it opens things up for him a great deal. And if Sine Wave's kind of posts and video saga have proved anything, is that if you really like a character, you can push them through practically anything if you want to. So now it's time for the big question, of course, should you pull for Minwu or any of the other characters on this list? Minwu's role in what he does is really powerful. Like, if you enjoy off-turn damage, then you're gonna like Minwu. There's no two ways about it. But I think that the biggest benefit that he has is just how many different ways in which he can get to what he needs to do. The fact that he does so much healing is wonderful. He is an offensive white mage, and I've always found that fierce about Minwu. Like I said, probably my favourite character in FF2 outside of the Emperor. But he has turn deletion if you want it. He has the ability to not use turn deletion if you don't want it. So you have this kind of character that can go hyper offensive or hyper defensive and still do crazy amounts of damage either way. His FR, really powerful for him, because he has party-wide Holy Enchant from his LD, because he has like lots of different ways of getting to, multiple traps that are going off. The ways in which his traps work, because they activate individually depending on how many enemies there are, you're ticking up that FR gauge really fast, and even though it doesn't necessarily look like it's really fast. However, players might not like the fact that those animations are going off one after the other. Like, if you're against like 3 enemies and you're seeing Holy Anchor, Holy Anchor, Holy Anchor, Noble Soul, and then like whatever other combo pieces you're using with him, people might not like that very much. But because of that as well, you kind of have to lean into that if you want to use Minwu effectively. Against a single target, you're only getting 1, which means that's only 10% on the FR gauge, whereas against 3, you'd be getting 30%. So there's reasons to use Minwu outside of, like, you know, maybe like single target fights, you can use him in them, but if you've got Tifa available, you'd probably just use her. But if you like this kind of playstyle, Minwu is fantastic, and I honestly can't wait to try and pick him up. This is a gem banner for me. However, I do always tend to use gems on new characters because there's just that many more items to pick up, and it just feels like a safer trip to do that. But then we have Locke and Vanille as well. Like, Vanille I actually quite like. I think Vanille's like boost here is quite relevant. I think having an extra HP dump on her assassination trap means that she plays well with others. No, it's not on the level of your Gladios, your Cores, your Galoofs, Minwu, obviously. But she's a great secondary to those characters. She doesn't heal, which is a bit of a no-no for her. But she can do so many other things, and she's got really nice debuffs. She's got the ability to prevent enemies from buffing themselves. Well, remove enemy buffs, not prevent them, but remove them. And then, yeah, she's just a really good secondary off-turn damage dealer. So she'll pair up really well with some nice characters. Locke, I wish I liked more than I do. I really do. I think that he is kind of this jack-of-all-trades character. Little bit of auras, little bit of healing. His BT effect has some nice stuff in it, like the party unbreakability with Sin from the likes of Yang, that can be really helpful. I just don't think, when you include like Ultima resources to green out that BT, I'm not so sure. I think if you already have him greened, you could absolutely pull him back out again and make use of him. I think the instant turn 8 HP dump HP plus is really nice. Would I use green resources on him? No, probably not. Like I said that earlier, and I'll say it again. It's just that I think that there are other characters coming up that are just much more deserving of it, Minwu being one of them. So that's going to be all from me today. Thank you ever so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoy what comes with Minwu. Hopefully you enjoy the character, and do keep an eye out for other videos that I'm be making. I am going to be taking a little bit less time on stream where I can, so that I have more time to make videos, because I have been live a lot since getting back from San Diego, and I haven't been focusing on YouTube as much, if I'm honest, so I need to get back on the train with that. So do subscribe, like the video, and click that notification bell for any other videos that I might be making, and hopefully I will see you sooner rather than later. Have a good day, beautiful, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.